Well, let's get more now on that announcement from the US government going ahead with a new tariff regime, which will see Australian imports levied at 12.5%. Dr. Susan Stone is a trade economist at Adelaide University and is with me now. Very warm welcome to you, Susan. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Can you take us through exactly what the US government has said as to why it's imposing this 12.5% tariff?
Well, the official line is that there's been an investigation into forced labor content of traded items. To be fair, this has been a longstanding issue with the U.S. They've been talking about this and trying to address it through different trade channels. But of course, this is now going to be applied on a blanket sense across pretty much all of U.S. trading partners. And it's saying that they're not doing enough to address forced labor.
So that's the official line, Susan. Yes. What's the unofficial line in your opinion? What do you believe the motivations are?
Well, I think that the Trump administration has been, since actually from the first iteration, looking for ways to apply blanket tariffs on goods coming into the U.S. Trump, as you know, really likes tariffs. He thinks that they're an effective way to raise revenue. And so he's been casting around. And as we know, there's been several attempts that have been shown to be illegal and blocked through the courts. And so this particular method through this Section 301, they're called, this is has a little bit more process behind it and has been shown to withstand court challenges a bit better than the attempts he's made through other channels in the past.
So is the timing curious that we had those Liberation Day tariffs ending today and we have these new tariffs under 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 that you alluded to beginning tonight?
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to think that it was coincidental. As I said, the administration's been looking for, and they're also currently investigating another very old piece of legislation that was put forward in the 1930s in the U.S. They're looking into that as being another avenue through which they can apply tariffs. So, yeah, they're really just, the Trump administration wants to put tariffs on goods, and they're looking through various legislative or legal means through which they can do that.
Is there any evidence that goods made here with forced labour that are entering our country?
Well, this is a big deal even for the Australian government, and there are many regulations already in place that address this issue. The same with, Canada, UK, the EU. So this is something that's been identified and being acknowledged. And Australia has really gone very far, further than many of our trading partners, in trying to trace and document and implement strategies to ensure that goods that come in here are not being used with forced labor. So it's really difficult to see why the U.S. especially would target a country like Australia that has such a vigorous regime in this area.
If you can just remind us which areas these tariffs apply to, because it's products, but it's not services, which we export as well.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, from the Australian perspective, first of all, from the forced labor perspective, they're applying it on all goods, and not all goods even have any evidence of engaging in forced labor, especially like high-tech, high-skilled sectors don't generally have this issue. But aside from that, from Australia's perspective, services are not being effective, which is good. 20% of our exports are in services, and the U.S. is our second biggest market there, so that should continue unimpeded. As for the goods that are affected at this 12.5%, it depends on really what type of good, because along with the provision for the 12.5% or the 10%, is about 55 pages of exemptions to these, which broadly are talking about things that goods or services, goods really, that would cause significant disruptions to domestic supply chains. So we see all kinds of exemptions in this list, including some aircraft parts, which may help our exporters to the U.S. market of those goods. It includes some wood products. Yeah, as I said, there's 55 pages, so you really have to go through and see the details of what goods will actually incur that 12.5%.
Is this in breach of the free trade agreement that Australia has with the United States?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. seems to have not really honored or acknowledged any of the free trade agreements it has, except for Canada, Mexico. The goods coming in through the USMCA, which is their free trade agreement, are exempt from these tariffs. But that seems to be the only agreement. There are significant exemptions with the UK, which kind of imply that the agreement they have in place may be coming into play there. But it's not mentioned specifically, nor is the fact that the U.S. and Australia have a free trade agreement. That hasn't even come into play. So it really is this desire to just put tariffs on goods across the board coming into the U.S.
We know that previously Australia has asked the US to not go ahead with the tariffs. Do you expect, and how do you expect the government might lodge some sort, if any, appeal or objection to this latest round?
Well, I would expect Australia to be very forceful in its condemnation of these tariffs. I think that they may, either on their own or together with other countries, try to pursue the methods that are available through the World Trade Organization in terms of lodging complaints and trying to be able to stop these tariffs on that ground. That's a bit of a slower process, but it would it could have implications further down the line. In the meantime, there's really not a lot we can do. We have to look at the fact that these tariffs are being applied unevenly, and some of our goods, as I said, may be exempted. Some of our trading partners in those sectors may have the same tariffs, so vis-a-vis our competitors, there won't be much of a change. However, India, Argentina, as I said, Canada, have either exempted or are 10% tariffs. And so in our agricultural products, let's say, we will now be at a slightly disadvantaged position.